What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to our series, How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either fix them or build them together. Now this week we are looking at a very interesting subclass of Blood Hunter, and that is the Order of the Lycan. So if you want to straight up be a werewolf, this is your ticket. So go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, the vast majority of viewers of this channel are not subscribed, so please help us out, help those numbers to change more in our favor, and that would be absolutely amazing. So the Order of the Lycan is honestly one of the top things that a lot of players in D&D would like to do, is to be able to transform into an animal, right? You get this with druids. This is why druids are so popular. Druids are also really strong. And you get this a little bit through other subclasses. I'm looking at like the beast barbarian, things like that, where you can transform. But this straight up is lycanthropy, and it's a very interesting take on lycanthropy, and gives you a lot of really cool features that seek to boost that archetype of a player. So I think it's really cool. It's really interesting how it is done. Let's go ahead and start ranking it. Starting off, we get a couple of features at level 3, and number 1 is heightened senses. Now this is not combat necessarily, but this is an exploration, very useful skill for exploration actually, and you get advantage on perception checks that rely on hearing or smell. You get this a lot with things like dogs, with things like wolves. A lot of your creatures like that get this feature, so it only makes sense that this would be part of this subclass. Quite useful, honestly. You are now the tracking dog. You're now the bloodhound of the group, and I think that's pretty neat. Overall, 8 out of 10. A pretty simple feature, but really cool. Having advantage on a perception check is always a good thing, and there's pretty much never a downside to that. So that's fantastic. Also at level 3, we get hybrid transformation, and this is what allows you to be a werewolf. Now if you keep up with Critical Role, obviously campaign 3 has started recently, and one of the characters was just recently revealed to be this subclass. The reveal was actually pretty cool.
I take my pants and I pull them down.
No, not that one. This one.
You think Gurge has a gift. Do you get a load of meat? My shoulder pops out, my back cracks.
That's more like it. The reveal was really cool, and obviously this is always going to be a really hype moment, right? It calls back to moments of, you know, I would like to rage, right? Things like that. This is an exciting time in combat, in transforming into a werewolf. It's really cool, and it's a lot of fun to play. It's a lot of fun to be around the table where someone is doing this. It's just a really awesome thing. So let's take a look at what we actually get as part of this feature. So as a bonus action, you can transform into your hybrid state. You can still speak, use your equipment, and wear armor, which is pretty cool. And you revert if you fall unconscious, drop to 0 hit points, anything like that. Your very standard transformation rules there. You get 1 use right now per short rest, but this will increase later, so don't worry, you'll get more. And you get a number of features while you are transformed. The first is that you get a +1 bonus to damage rolls made with melee. Now in this subclass, you are going to be using your unarmed strikes a lot, but this just shows you don't necessarily have to use your unarmed strikes. You get it with melee damage rolls. It does not say unarmed strikes or anything like that. It is melee damage rolls. So this could apply to a weapon as well. You also get advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. So this is starting to sound a lot like Rage. Don't worry, it's going to sound a lot more like Rage here in a second. You get Resilient Hide, where you get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks not made with silver weapons. And you also get a +1 to your AC as long as you're not wearing heavy armor, which is always a good thing. Bonus to AC is always a good thing. And then we also get Predatory Strikes. This allows us to use our unarmed strikes as a weapon. One thing that's really cool about this is that you can apply your Crimson Right to both hands at once, and it is not considered, we talked about last week as far as the Ghost Slayer, where you could light up one as a bonus action, then you could light up the other one as a bonus action. This, you can light them both up in one go, which is really cool. That's really nice, and you can use dexterity instead of strength, so they technically have the finesse property, even though it doesn't so much come out and say that. Whether or not it actually has the finesse property, talk to your DM in case you're thinking about also going into rogue here. I would talk to your DM, because technically it doesn't, although it functions as though it does. And you also can make a bonus attack as your bonus action on subsequent turns, which is really cool. They are a D6 for right now, and they will go up to a D8 at level 11. Really neat. The downside, though, is that you have Bloodlust. Now, I say downside, but honestly, this is really flavorful. I really, really like this feature, even though it's a detriment to you technically. It actually causes you to lose control of yourself as the lycanthropy takes over your mind, as this just thirst for, destruction comes over you. You do have to make a DC 8 wisdom saving throw, which that DC is pretty low, and it does not get any higher. So that's pretty cool. Now, it only also happens if you're below half HP. So, it's not going to happen all the time, but if you are low on HP, it's possible that you may lose control of yourself for part of that turn. It is only the first action that you make, so if you make an extra attack after that, you can control yourself, and you gain control of yourself after you make that first attack. So it's not terribly detrimental, but you could end up attacking your friend at that point if your friend is closer than another enemy. So positioning is key on this kind of a character. You definitely want to stay away from your friends rather than being near them. Make sure that you have friends that can do ranged healing or helping to you, because otherwise you are kind of on your own, and that's kind of how you want to be. Otherwise you could end up hurting your friends. But again, that leads to really, really cool role-playing moments, right? Where you went into your bloodlust and you hurt your friend, and you have a whole conversation about, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I don't know what came over me. And that's a really cool character building moment for both of you. I think that's really cool. So overall, this is a really dense and awesome feature. It gives you basically Rage Light. It's not as good as Rage, but it's pretty good. I think it's a pretty good feature. Giving you the bonus AC is really, really good, and being allowed to use your Crimson Right feature on your unarmed strikes is really neat. Now, one thing to keep in mind, applying Crimson Right and transforming do not happen on the same bonus action. So it technically takes 2 turns for you to get fully set up, unless your DM wants to rule otherwise. Talk to your DM, because otherwise you have to transform in 1 turn, and then you have to apply the Crimson Rights the next turn. See if your DM will let you do that all in one go. I would allow it at my table, just because that's just kind of annoying to have to do that over 2 turns. But make sure you talk to your DM before you just kind of assume. Definitely something to ask about. As far as an overall ranking, this is honestly a 10 out of 10. It's not as good as Rage, but it does have a lot of Rage-like features. It gives you a really good unarmed strike, which is nice, and it just gets better as you level up. Honestly, the Bloodlust isn't enough of a drawback for me to want to rank it any lower. It's just a really, really solid feature. At level 7, we get Stalker's Prowess, and this comes with 2 features built into it. The first one is that we now have an increased walking speed by 10 feet, always a good thing, and you can now add 10 feet to your long jump as well as 3 feet to your high jump. The jumping thing, not huge. It's not going to come up super often. However, the speed increasing by 10 feet, that's always a good thing. There's never a time where going faster is a bad thing. Then we get improved predatory strikes, and this actually, we already had a bonus to our damage rolls. Now we get a bonus to our attack rolls when we make our unarmed strikes. So the bonus is 1 for right now, but it goes up to 2 at level 11 and 8, and at 18th we get a +3. So that's also really, really neat. And when you have a Crimson Right active on your unarmed strikes, it now counts as magical for the purposes of overcoming damage resistance. This is coming online at a really, really good time, honestly. You're getting to the point where a lot of things that you're facing are going to have resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, depending on what you fight, obviously, but for the most part at this level, you're going to be running into things that have that resistance. It's pretty standard. So this is going to allow you to get around it, and a lot of times when you're doing unarmed strikes, some things don't give you this feature, and that could be really, really bad for you. So this is a great feature to pick up. I think it's vastly useful. I think it's absolutely wonderful. This is a 9 out of 10, making them magical, making them easier to hit, and improving your speed. All fantastic features that you're going to use all the time. At level 11, we get Advanced Transformation, and we get 2 more features built into this. So, number 1, we now get to use our Lycanthropy feature twice. So we can transform into our Lycan form 2 times per short rest now, which is wonderful. And we also get an improvement feature on our Lycanthropy as well. So now, before we roll for our Bloodlust, this is when we are below half HP, we can just regain hit points of 1 plus our Constitution modifier. That's pretty awesome. So just free healing at the beginning of our turn. And notice that this comes before we roll for Bloodlust. So if this gets us back over half, you no longer have to roll for it. So that's pretty cool too. Is it likely? It just depends. It really depends on your Constitution modifier, and you really have to be right there. You know, if you've got a 5 in Constitution, you've got to be within 6 HP. That's a pretty tight window, so how often that's going to happen is probably pretty rare, but it could happen, just if the math works out in your favor. Overall, really, really cool feature. Of course, adding more uses of your ability is great. 4 per day is honestly plenty. I think that's fantastic. You should be able to get through pretty much every encounter throughout the day. I would imagine having 2 per short rest. I don't see you running out at this point, so that's really, really nice. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. It's really, really handy. The healing is a little underwhelming, but it is what it is. If it was much more, it would probably be super busted since it's just every single turn for free. So I can't see adding any more to it. It's just not that much. At level 15, we get Brand of the Voracious, and just like our Ghost Slayer and like every other subclass of Blood Hunter, you get a boost to your branding of Castigation and later of Tethering. So this actually allows you to gain advantage on your Wisdom saving throw for Bloodlust, which is really good. It's really late to get it, but I mean, honestly, it's kind of a core feature, right? And the whole point of progressing as a character is to be able to overcome the Bloodlust. So it makes sense to get this super late. You've got to be really experienced in controlling yourself. So really cool. I do hate it comes online late, but it needs to, right? It definitely needs to for story purposes. And now, whenever we are branding someone, oh boy, you now have advantage against creatures that are branded by you. That's kind of insane, right? Because now, you know, Blood Hunters love crits. Because you've got your rights, you've got your attacks, you've got all kinds of other stuff. I'm sure you have some really cool things by level 15. If you don't, then your DM is being mean to you. So yeah, you've got a lot of things that you can do with that, with having advantage. This is just amazing. Free advantage is amazing, and getting advantage on your Wisdom saving throw, also amazing. 10 out of 10. I wouldn't change anything about this feature. It's fantastic. Finally, at level 18, we gain Hybrid Transformation Mastery, and we can now transform as many times as we want to, for as long as we want to. That's, of course, amazing. So now you can just be your werewolf form permanently if you want to, and you're completely in control of yourself, essentially. So that's really, really awesome. You also gain the Blood Curse of the Howl. So obviously, this one comes on later than the Ghost Slayer. There are some that come online earlier than later, so just watch for that, whichever subclass you're doing for Blood Hunter. But this one comes on at 18, so you would normally expect something that comes online at 18 to be super, super powerful. Honestly, I'm kind of disappointed in Blood Curse of the Howl. It's not useless, but I wouldn't consider it to be the most useful thing that I've seen on the list. So what you do is, as an action, you can basically howl. And creatures within 30 feet of you have to make a wisdom saving throw or they're frightened. Okay, like there are a ton of things that allow you to frighten people, right? However, if they fail the saving throw by 5 or more, they are also stunned. That's pretty cool, right? Being able to stun an enemy on a failed wisdom save. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So obviously you're going to want a really good intelligence score in order to get that save high. So, you know, you're going to want your dexterity or strength really, really high, depending on which way you want to go. You want your constitution high for your regaining of hit points, and you need your intelligence really high. So this is definitely becoming a very multiple ability dependent kind of build, which in fairness, all Blood Hunters are, but this one relies on a lot of different features pretty heavily. So you're gonna be struggling a little bit when it comes to stats. Some of your stuff isn't going to be fully maxed out, and that's just gonna be how it is, unfortunately. So this is pretty cool, right? However, wisdom saving throws, depending on what, again, it depends on what you're fighting here. Some may have a plus 1,000,000 to it. Some may have a negative, you know, when you're at level 18. It just depends. Most of the time, they're going to have a pretty decent wisdom at this point, because a lot of your things that you're fighting at this point are really intelligent creatures, and they have a lot of really good things in their mental stats. So it's going to be tough, but if they fail by 5 or more, that's incredibly detrimental to them. So, and it's going to really, really help out your teammates, right? Because, you know, you've already got advantage on everything, which is great, but now you're giving advantage to your team as well. So that's going to be the absolute nay round, and it's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool. If you amplify this, which depending on the situation could be worth it, but honestly, I don't think that it is. I don't think it's worth amplifying this, because all you do is make the range out to 60 feet. Unless you are just really, really scared of getting in really close, I think you should probably just not amplify it, because there is a save involved. Because you could hurt yourself and then do nothing with this. So I think it's better to get within 30 feet, do this, and then dip if you need to. I don't think that that's the way to go, unfortunately. As far as this goes, I think this is an 8 out of 10 feature. I don't think it's fantastic, but I do think it's quite good. Being able to stun somebody is nice, but obviously they're going to have to roll pretty poorly on their wisdom save in order to do so. And of course, you're fighting things that have legendary resistance, and it's not going to always go off the way you want it to. And that's why I really don't like the things that require a saving throw for you to get here at level 18. It's just probably not always going to work out in your favor. So, where do we stand overall on the Order of the Lycan Blood Hunter? This thing's fantastic, right? This is a ton of fun, first of all. The roleplay potential is off the charts. You've got your perception stuff built in, so you're really good for exploration. You're basically the dog of the party. You know, you just lead everybody around, which is really cool. I think that's absolutely amazing. And then in combat, you're pretty decent, right? You know, you've got a D8 once you get to level 11, a D8 weapon that you can use as your action and bonus action, and you get to add all of your fancy things to each. I think that's awesome, but it also gives you the option to use a weapon if you wanted to. You don't necessarily have to use your unarmed strikes. It just obviously fits a lot more with the flavor of having those claws out and that sort of thing. So it's just a lot of fun. I think everything about this just sounds absolutely a good time, and I would love to play one of these. I've not gotten the pleasure yet, but it sounds fun. My overall ranking is a 10 out of 10. This is probably the strongest of the Blood Hunters. There are a lot of good things about this subclass, and I think this was built right. I think it's very strong, but I don't think it's stupid overpowered. I think it's just a lot of fun, and it's just really good, and I think that anybody who plays this is going to have a great time. So that is it for our ranking. Of course, we're going to be building one of these later this week, and we've got a unique build planned. It's different. It's very different than what I've ever built in the past, using a class that I've not used on any of my builds yet to date. So that's going to be really cool. And I think you guys are going to enjoy it. I think it's going to be a really, really fun build. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video when it goes live. Until then, have a great week. Stay safe out there, stay healthy, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.